We need to introduce the main person of our panel here. Is there anyone in the audience who doesn't know who Chuck Norris is? Chuck Norris. You were my film idol growing up. What were your film idols growing up? When you first started discovering movies, who did you look up to on the big screen?
My heroes was John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart. These were they were my heroes. Growing up basically without a father image, John Wayne became kind of a surrogate father to me growing up.
What inspired you to start learning martial arts, and what was the first discipline you started in?
Well, I joined the Air Force in 1958, right out of high school. And I was sent to Korea. And, back in 1958, no one knew anything about martial arts. And judo, we'd heard of judos, but when I got to Osan Air Base, I thought, maybe I'm going to start training and take judo up. So I started studying judo, and in my second week into training, I broke my shoulder. So now here I've got my arm in a sling and can't train, and so I took a walk out into the village of Osan, Korea. And as I'm walking through the village, I look up onto a knoll, and I see these heads popping up. And I go, golly, what's that going on out there? So I walk up the knoll, and I see these Koreans leaping up in the air and doing these spectacular kicks. And I thought, holy mackerel, I can't believe the human body can do something like that. And I wanted to ask them what it was, but they looked pretty mean. So I thought, maybe I better not go down there. So I went back to the base and asked my judo instructor what it was. And at that time, it was called Tong Soo-do, now called Taekwondo. So I think there's some Tong Soo-do people in here. But anyway, I started training in that. I said, I told my judo instructor I'd like to train in that with my one good arm, and then once my arm heals, I'd like to get back in my judo. So I did, and I trained 6 days a week in Tong Soo-do, and then on Sundays I would train in judo. So when I left Korea, I had my first degree black belt in Tong Soo-do and my brown belt in judo.
Now, you were one of the first recognizable non-Asians practicing martial arts in North America and to the most extent the world. You began teaching, bringing that knowledge to America, and managed to get belts and awards. You just progressed into the championship world. And then you started teaching actors, and that's kind of where something changed, or a certain man apparently gave you some advice. Was that Steve McQueen?
Actually, what happened is that when I came back and I opened up my first karate school when I got out of the military in 1962, and I started teaching. And of course, in 1962, not many people really knew what the martial arts was all about. They thought it was that touch of death. If you touch somebody, you're going to die. And so it was really, trying to indoctrinate people on the true value of the martial arts. And but I thought, well, how can I get students in my school? So I decided maybe I'll become a karate fighter, and if I could win a local tournament, maybe I could get a write-up in the local papers and help get students in my school. So my whole motivation for becoming a fighter was to get students in my school. And so it took several outings. Finally, I did fight for the LA Open, and I won it. And then, it's funny about goals. You think, well, that was my ultimate goal, win the Los Angeles Open Championships. Then I thought, well, shoot, if I can win the LA Open, maybe I could win the state title. So in 1965, I go to San Francisco and I win the state title. And I thought, well, shoot, if I can win the state title, maybe I could win the national title. So in 1966, I go to New York and I fight for the national title, and I win it. I go, well, shoot. If I can win the national title, maybe I can win the biggest championship, the internationals, which people come from all over the world to participate in. Maybe I could win the internationals. So in 1966, I fight for the international championships, and I win the middleweight division. And so I fight for the grand championship, and I lose. I lose it. So anyway, but it made me more determined. I said, well, next year I'm gonna win it. So in 1967, I went back, I fought, and I won the international grand championship. So now I was gonna retire and concentrate on my schools. By that time I had 4 schools and just concentrate on teaching. And the promoter of the International says, Chuck, if you can win this 2 years in a row, we have this big silver bowl, we'll put your name in that bowl. I go, oh man, I gotta get my name in that bowl. So in 1968 I went back and I fought again and I won it again. And then I was gonna retire again. And then I get a call from a promoter in New York, says, would you like to fight Louis Delgado, who has beaten you in championships, for the World Championship? And so I thought, well, I'd like to beat Lou. I'd like to go back and beat him. So I go back to New York, and Lou and I fought, and I wound up winning the middleweight world title. And I held it for 6 years, and then I started teaching private students, and that's how I got some of the celebrities. Steve McQueen, Bob Barker, yeah, Priscilla Presley, the Osmond family, and all them. But anyway, I wound up losing my schools on a business venture. And I sold my schools to a company to go nationwide, and it didn't work out. We wound up going bankrupt. And so now I said, well, what am I going to do now? And I was teaching private, I was teaching Steve McQueen. He said, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to start over again? I said, I don't know, Steve, I'm not really sure. He says, well, have you ever thought about acting? And I burst out laughing. I said, Steve, I've never done a high school play, much less anything else. But anyway, he encouraged me, and I won't go through the long dissertation of what it took for me to make it, because it was 6 years of incredible work to get there. But anyway, through the grace of God, I was able to make it a success in the film world, and here I am now.
I have one more question for you, and then we'll kind of break it up to the ranks here, your team. You were asked to go and work on a Hong Kong film, which was Way of the Dragon, and you fought against Bruce Lee. How did you first know about Bruce Lee? Obviously, probably through the world of tournaments and championships, but can you talk a little bit about Bruce Lee and about your journey to make your first film, which was actually a Hong Kong film?
Well, actually, I met Bruce when I fought for the world title in New York City in 1968 at Madison Square Garden. Bruce was doing that series, The Green Hornet, and so he was there as a celebrity guest. And after I won the championship, the promoter introduced me to Bruce. And so Bruce and I were staying at the same hotel in New York. And so we started walking back to the hotel together, and all of a sudden we start talking about our philosophies and techniques in the martial arts. And I'll never forget this. We're going up the elevator, and I was on the 7th floor, and Bruce was on the 9th floor. And as we started, so we're in the elevator, we're really getting animated about, and as we hit the 7th floor, we both step out into the hallway there. This is about midnight, about 12 o'clock at night. And also we start working out in the hallway there. Next time we look, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. And he says, man, I got a 7 o'clock flight, I gotta get ready. So he said, he lived in LA, he says, let's work out when we get back. And so we did. We trained together for like 2 years. And then he left for Hong Kong to pursue his movie career. And I didn't hear from him for like 2 years. And then out of the blue, Bruce calls me. And he says, I've done 2 movies in Hong Kong, and they're really successful. He says, I want to do a movie now with a fight scene that everyone will remember, and I want to do it in the Colosseum in Rome. And I want you to be my opponent. So kiddingly, I say to Bruce, I said, well, who wins, Bruce? He says, I win, I'm the star of this movie. This is 1972, so I still hold the world title. So I said, oh, I see, you want to beat up the world champion, don't you? He says, no, I want to kill the world champion. Which, if you've seen Return of the Dragon, it was called Way of the Dragon over there, but in the States it's called Return of the Dragon. But anyway, he did. But anyway, Bruce, he didn't make me out to be a bad guy. It was like 2 gladiators fighting to the death in the arena. And then after he killed me, he puts my gi across my chest and my belt very ceremoniously. So I didn't get construed as the bad guy from that film, and I was really glad about that.